My ex got me pregnant without my consent. I'm F52, becoming a bad person and I can't help it. I'm currently hurting my ex-boyfriend, M53, and I know this isn't healthy. I just can't stop. I just hate him so much. He was my first. We dated back in college. He was very insistent and I was super excited because he was my crush for a full 2 years before he asked me out. He faded from my life, then came back, then faded. Our last attempt was 1 month before graduation. We dated, but then he dropped me off after having sex and didn't call me again. He reappears a month later, but I was getting to know a new guy and I told him. He acted very hurt that I was taking his call from my new guy's car. My date knew who I was talking to. It made no sense. We talked sporadically for a year. Nothing romantic or anything. He met his future wife, so we lost contact. We reconnected 12 years later, Viaduct FB. We were both divorced. He asked me out on a date. It was all good until it wasn't. He destroyed me. The mental abuse was awful. I already loved him and was super attached, which he used to his advantage. During that time, I was body shamed. He eyed other women and praised them to my face. I was told I was too poor to be loved, got quizzed on career certifications that I had no knowledge of, was called a backwards woman and a ball and chain for not being sophisticated. He invited an ex-college friend over, made her lasagna, and excluded me. He'd never cooked for me. He told me he'd shown her my teary voicemails pleading with him over a bad disagreement and that she was put off by it and called him abusive. I'm sure he friked her. Then he openly told me he liked someone else from his industry and said she was so high up that I looked insignificant. He did this during an outing. I had to wait to get home because I wasn't driving and Uber wasn't a thing back then. My heart was sinking. I said I wanted to break up, but he freaked out, made promises, and I stayed. Stupid me. He went crazy again talking about this other woman that he liked. My feelings were nothing to him and I'm ashamed to admit that I felt like a doormat. He showed up to go have dinner and picked that woman up on our way. It was just a short ride to drop her off at her house, but the fact that he knew where she lived was too much for me. I canceled our date and broke up with him. We had sex when I went to pick up whatever personal items were left at his place. He pinned me with his body and repeated, "You are not enough for me, just AC rag, I don't want you for anything." He said it with a smile like it was my place to withstand his abuse, like it was a fantasy or something. I froze. I don't remember saying anything. I did call him out as I was leaving. We had a huge argument. I called him names and reminded him why he's always getting broken up with, not just by me, but by his ex-wife and other past relationships. I was well on my way home when he called. He said he was sure he'd gotten me pregnant and that I shouldn't cut him off. I freaked out. I didn't have money for a termination and Plan B wasn't accessible to me at the time. He never offered any help. Well, I ended up pregnant because he stealthed on me. My pregnancy was a nightmare. I never told him. He would call me asking whether I'd gotten pregnant or not, but I never answered. One day he would ask to be in my life. He would call and leave messages about calling off the pregnancy, like it was an event, if I was by any chance expecting, because he didn't care about me and couldn't love a kid by a woman who was clearly inferior. I started to get very bad episodes from his calls. I would start shaking uncontrollably and feel like I was gonna pass out, shortness of breath. At one point, he also implied that I got pregnant on purpose, which is the most painful gaslighting I've ever experienced. I refused to go to the police since then he would find out about my pregnancy and I didn't want him near my kid. I was also afraid he would want custody. I just became terrified of him. I changed my number, moved away, had my baby, and lost part of my health in the process. My daughter is my best friend and a wonderful kid. For 18 years, I've done nothing but live for my family and my job. I went back to college, earned an MBA, and got certified. I own a small company, and I'm doing well. My business partner eyed a company closing down its operations. The company sold its assets to 3 different buyers based on their market. My client is one of the buyers. My ex is an engineer at the plant. Everything about him is outdated. His license is up to date, but his skills are not as diverse as other professionals. I don't harass him on a job-based criteria. I just keep undermining him as a person. Sometimes I don't smile back. Sometimes I do. He greeted me the other day, and so I asked him not to do that because we are not on the same level. His face sunk. My level of hate has escalated. He now drives a beat-up car. I don't know his present situation, but it seems like he's now financially strained. IDK exactly why, as he has a job. I noticed his car was parked in the wrong spot, so I called the police. I've leaked his hateful and very old Twitter posts to his church social media. I've recorded his very personal conversations thanks to a waitress while he was having an argument with his cousin, long story, and posted it on a Facebook account that I created and it went tiny viral, shared by people in his circle. I posted his participation in a forum that I found and exposed him as a hateful toxic male, which resulted in him being removed from being a summer camp sponsor. I also found out he has a pending child support case, so I anonymously sent his ex everything I know about his freelance work. It's on his resume. I just hate him. I paid 2 college students to chase him and cover him in dog poop. I just couldn't think about anything else that didn't involve actual harm. They walked behind him after he finished his daily walk and ran after him. He started screaming, so they shit at him as soon as they could. Right now, I convinced his employer to reassess their entire engineering team and start cutting the fat. I don't know if they'll fire him, but I sure hope so. I'm keeping my family life private for obvious reasons. He hasn't asked, although sometimes I think he knows. The last thing I did was pose as an online chick and ghosted him when we were supposed to have a date. He wrote her and she said, "I went to our date but saw you from afar and realized you were way below my class and standards, so I just left." He never replied but did read my message. To my satisfaction, he looked off for a few days. I don't see him every day, but I do have access to seeing him if I want to go to his work area. I'm tired of this, but I still feel like he needs to suffer for all the pain he caused. I did get some professional help after I ended the relationship, but seeing him again has triggered all this horrible emotional trauma of being sexually used and being intentionally impregnated without my consent. The first time I saw him triggered a small bout of anxiety. I never stay alone with him, and because of him I can't enjoy the missionary position without getting claustrophobic. The last time I tried it, I got clammy hands and was out of breath. I also developed a severe fear of going into a guy's place and missed out on some relationships whenever the guy asked me about my academic background or job, despite having created a good track record for myself. I didn't date for a long time for fear of being humiliated. He took away a huge chunk of my self-work, my smile and nod at my dignity. I know I need to stop. I'd like to be able to forget and move on. I would love to lose my need to see him cry because I don't know when he'll get fired if it happens, and then I may get disappointed that I can't keep ruining his life. Can somebody offer advice that doesn't include talking to him, facing him, or forgiving him? Now that I've met most of my career goals and milestones, I would love to enjoy myself without having to revisit the damage that he caused. Would love to be able not to feel triggered by his disgusting presence. My daughter knows the truth. Some people were against it, but I explained why she should never have him around. She knows he has nothing positive to contribute and that he put no value in her while she was still a potential pregnancy. With this, I've wanted to protect her from any potential meeting and subsequent humiliation on his side. All I'm grateful for is that he never tried to have any type of relationship, based on my belief that he may know I did get pregnant.